There is currently a huge market for mobile gaming, and as a mobile gamer, I am pretty excited about what the future might hold. But for right now, games that we're getting on mobile seems to be mediocre at best. And what I mean by that is that we don't get the same level of quality with games as we would get on a traditional gaming console. And it's not that mobile devices these days can't run those games. Because if you take like a flagship mobile processor from 2 maybe 3 years ago, such as the Snapdragon 855, that device itself, or that chipset itself, has a GPU computational processing power of up to 800 gigaflops. And when you look at a device as the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox 360, which had 230 gigaflops and 240 gigaflops respectively, and you see the type of games that were able to be developed for those platforms, you're wondering why we don't get that level of quality of games on mobiles. Now, I think piracy has to play in a big factor um, with this, because mobile games get pirated a lot. So I think that's one of the main reasons. However, you can say the same thing for PC, but PC still get these games. I think it's about time that mobile gamers get the same treatment as PC gamers. Like, there should be native ports for some of these amazing games on Android and on iOS. There's a lot of telescopic controllers and a lot of native Android handhelds that are being made these days to support mobile gaming with controllers. However, what I want to talk about is like the porting process of PC games and games from like the 7th generation and the 6th generation. When you look at the PlayStation 2 and the quality of games that we got on that device, along with the Xbox and the GameCube, you'd love to play some of those games on your mobile devices these days. You'd love to just venture into those stories and see what will be possible. GameCube emulation on Android these days is pretty much perfect. It's on par with what we have on the PC. However, we don't have the same support for, let's say, PlayStation 2 or Xbox. Now I'm going to go over a few numbers here just to point out a few things to you. Dreamcast emulation on Android and iOS is pretty much flawless. Once the emulator supports the game, then you'll be able to run that game at full speed once you have a powerful enough device. The Dreamcast had 1.4 gigaflops of GPU computational power, and that runs flawlessly, along with PSP with 2.4 gigaflops, and that runs pretty amazing as well these days. 3DS emulation is new, but it's pretty good as well, and this device had a GPU computational power of 4.8 gigaflops. The GameCube had 9.4 gigaflops of GPU computational power, and this also is running pretty well on Android these days once you have the right device. The Wii had 12 gigaflops of computational power, and this also runs pretty amazingly on Android. And it begs to think, like, if Wii games can run at full speed via emulation, why don't we have the same support for PS2 when the PS2 had a 6.2 gigaflop GPU? And the reason for this is because the Emotion engine that was in the PlayStation 2 was pretty hard to develop for. Similar with the PlayStation 3, it was just a weird architecture that gave developers a hard time. So that's why, however, these games can still be ported to Android and iOS. And also, the few developers who are working on a PS2 emulator for mobile, they don't have the same amount of funding as the guys who are working on the Dolphin emulator for GameCube and Wii. If they had that level of support, then yes, I think we would be able to see much better performance out of PlayStation 2 on mobile. And this is something that I would love to see. I'd love to see native support for PS2 games on mobile. It would be really amazing to know that, hey, you can go ahead and play your PS2 games on a mobile device. You go ahead and you play that on your handheld, and that would be really amazing. Imagine you picking up God of War 2 and you playing it through a PlayStation 2 emulator on the go. That's pretty amazing. You can do that now with PSP and play the few little God of War titles that we have available. However, it's not a lot, and I think that it could be a lot better if developers get enough support for these games. Personally, I'm excited as to what the future holds. I think we are going to get better support for PS2 and GameCube in the future. There is a lot that can happen in the mobile scene. It's not happening right now, but there's a lot that could come in the future. The PlayStation 3, Xbox, and Xbox 360, we don't have any emulators for those. On Android, we do have a PC emulator for PS3, but for Xbox and for Xbox 360, emulation is just getting started for those devices. And if you see with emulation for when the emulation process is in its infancy for a console, it really takes a beefy system to emulate those devices. If you look at the Xbox emulator that's on PC right now, it takes a pretty powerful graphics card to run that emulator at full speed. And I'm talking about the original Xbox and not the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 is doing good on PC now, but a few years ago, it was just atrocious. You couldn't get games to boot, games will be running at less than 20 FPS, and that's what happens when development on an emulator starts late. However, I'm hoping for this to change. A lot of persons are taking notice of the emulation scene and what can happen, because it's sad. Like with movies, you can just rent an old movie and watch it on demand. There's a lot of services that you can go to get old movies and watch them. Why isn't the same with video games? I think video games should get the same treatment, where we preserve the history of games so that we can have all these great games for the future. It makes no sense that you develop something and after one generation it goes away. This is why I think backwards compatibility is an amazing feature, and why I would like to see the major gaming publishers, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, continue to push for backwards compatibility on their future consoles. Also, I spoke about this in my previous video, but PlayStation Now is a pretty great service, and for what it's offering, it has the opportunity to really dominate in the streaming market. They just have to market it more, because you're getting over 3 generations of console gaming in one service for $10 a month, and that's pretty much unbeatable in my opinion. You can play PS2, PS3, and PS4 games through PlayStation Now, and I think that's a great way to preserve the service and preserve these games, I should say. Preservation of old games is key. It's important. I would love to see where we get to always play these games that we want to play. Having the option to play a game regardless of which platform you're on is amazing. I think that this is something that should continue. I hope Sony starts to market PlayStation Now a lot more so that we can continue to play the games that we love in the fashion that we want to play them. I'm really trying to hold out hope and be optimistic about what might be possible for the future of gaming. I think mobile is a great platform for us to play a lot of these great Android and a lot of these great old games, I should say. Playing your old games on a mobile device where you can take them anywhere is a big selling point. And I think some company or any company, any big publisher should start to look at the mobile market and see what it offers. There's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of possibilities. Like you could easily make a lot of money off the mobile market. You have a lot of mobile gamers, as I've said before, who loves video games, but they just don't want to buy into a console to access those games, or they don't want to buy a PC to access those games. Imagine you pay $1,000 for a flagship phone and you're playing Temple Run or you're playing Subway Surfers. It's not that you don't want to play higher demanding games, it's just that there's not much good games on mobile that you'd say is of console quality. And I'd love to see more of that. Yes, there are a few games that were ported over to mobile, such as Tomb Raider, Half-Life series, Doom BFG, but those were ported over for a specific device, the Nvidia Shield. And I'd love to see another company come and get some more ports over onto the Android and iOS platforms so that we can take advantage of these games a lot more. There's a lot for us to unlock here, and I'm pretty excited. I hope to see the mobile division of gaming really succeed and do a lot better than it's doing now, because there's a lot of possibilities, there's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot of games that needs preservation. So I'm hoping that we get to see that in the future. I'm hoping to see where we start to get more native ports. I hope to see where emulation gets better on mobile devices. If you are of the same opinion, please go ahead, let me know in the comments down below. Give the video a like if you like it. This was just a rant for the most part. I just wanted to give my opinion on the topic, and if you share the same sentiment, let me know down below. Please sub to the channel if you like what I'm doing, and until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.